And for lack of a better word, we are on. So I'll start by introducing the talk. Nicholas, welcome to Product Tank Nairobi. As I mentioned in previous conversations, the intention of this is for the Nairobi community to get an opportunity to learn from each other and from other product leaders on product development. That's the intention of these sessions. And what we do is we have different kinds of speakers, and this time we got an opportunity to have you on board. For the attendees, we can post our questions on the chat because after we have the short conversation that we'll have with Nicholas, we'll try to keep it brief so that we keep you engaged. Then we'll answer your questions. We'd also picked up some questions from you while you were RSVPing for the meetup, and you might hear some of them being answered already. But feel free to post your questions. When you think of a question, just post it, then we'll pick it up. Yeah. So I'll start by welcoming you, Nicholas, to this session. And I was fascinated when I was going through your profile. You have been in products when people didn't know about products. That's probably more than 15 years. You worked in different industries. You are just, to me, you're quite the character. Someone I would love to hear from, because even in all the industries you worked in, you had an opportunity of being a leader, not just a product manager, a leader. And so that I don't do you any disservice, I will let you introduce yourself, let the attendees know more about you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Anne. So thanks for having me. I'm very happy to have that conversation. And yeah, so in a nutshell, as we were discussing before, so I'm French. I've been living in Germany for a while now. Before that, lived in different countries. And as you said, yeah, I think I started my career like 20 years ago, and my background is engineering and geography, so a weird mix already then. But that's where I spent the first part of my career, so working in digital mapping and location services, first as an engineer, but very quickly in project management. There was no product management at that point, but still on project management. So and I think what made me switch side was basically that still very interested in technology, but I wanted to understand what problem we were solving for user using technology. So I started my path in product development or product management 20 years ago basically, and I went from working in location services, mapping, to mobility, autonomous driving, connected car, big data platform. Then I switched to spend a little bit of time in the music industry on music distribution and then music creation, and then recently in insurance tech, fintech, and yeah, it's very nice of you to say that I've been a leader. I'm trying. I think I'm coming to company now in the last 10 years, mostly when the company are going through a change and need to rethink their strategy and professionalize a little bit the way they do product. And what we have seen in the last 10 years is basically product is taking a more and more important place in every single company out there. So. But of course, I've only been working in digital product company, right? I did a little bit of hardware, software, but I would say it's always digital first. And on top of working in this company, I've also been sitting at the board of startup and advising them for quite a while now, several of them, and I also do a lot of mentoring, which helped me keep on my toes and understand what's happening in other industry where I didn't work, or other countries, or just very happy to have regular conversation and trying to contribute back to the people who are interested in product in general.
So from your introduction, I already have like I'm quite interested to know from your experience, why is product taking over product management? Because we had project management for quite some time, and now in different companies, actually very many companies are leaning towards product development. Why? Do you have any insight on that?
Yeah, I think it's because product is, project management is just basically a way you execute against something, and product is a little bit more than this. Of course, product delivery is a lot about execution, but there's a lot more that comes behind that is part of the product realm. And then maybe something that will, I think product, for example, this whole debate around product owner, product manager, I think product owner is not a role. It's just something it's part of the job of a product manager. A product manager needs to do a lot more things, like thinking about the strategy, doing all the discovery, understanding what product wanted by the users and what problem you're solving, and then iterating on that, and then moving into delivery and this continuous discovery part. So I think it's just that it makes it product is becoming important also because there is this whole movement toward experiences, and people want to have experiences, and for that you need to really understand your user very very deeply. So I think the reason why we are moving much more towards product taking a much more important role in many industries, because product is at the core of understanding what problem we are solving and how we're going to solve it in a way that we're going to delight the customer and make money on the way. So it's really sitting at the crossroad of all these different of answering all these different questions, and that's why you see a lot of product manager basically having a very brilliant career, because being a good product manager requires a lot of the qualities that you will be needed to at some point run your own company or be part of an executive team. So I think it gives you the opportunity to really operate at different level and look at a lot of different functions and communicate across the whole company and work across the whole different function in the company. It's almost the glue, I would say, that brings the company all together.
I agree, and you literally introduced our topic that the intention of a product owner is to delight the customer. And I had you mention also that probably one of the reasons that product is taking over is because one of the things that happens in product development is understanding our customer more before we start delivering anything. We don't go straight to execution. We understand the customer more so that we figure out what will delight them the most. So just maybe for our sake, you could probably, I can imagine the guys on the call already have a theoretical definition of what product discovery is. And they probably joined the call to get a practical description of what it is. And I would really love to hear from you, from your perspective, what is product discovery?
That's an interesting question. I think first of all, product discovery is absolutely needed and required. Mm-hmm. And at the end, product discovery, I look at it through 4 lenses. Is just it's 4 boxes that you need to tick, and then you're going to use different methodology to just validate assumption along these four areas, and they are basically making sure that you are really solving a real problem. So making sure you're not just solving a problem that doesn't exist, right? There's a lot of product out there who are built like that. So the first thing is basically making sure your product is valuable for your user. You're solving a real problem. The second one is making sure that the way you're going to solve the problem is relevant, so that so that you're going to solve the problem in a way that makes sense for the user and they can actually do. The third one is the viability. So basically, it's how are you going to be able to make money with it? And the fourth one, and they are not in a priority order, right? It's just 4 different domains and areas that you need to check. And the last one is around feasibility. Like, can you actually deliver against your promises? So more from a technology, legal, all these different aspects. So I think for me, product discovery is basically looking at these 4 angles. When you come with an idea, basically you start looking from these 4 angles and you start to de-risk on these 4 angles. So the whole reason why product discovery exists is just to make sure that you eliminate risk of delivering a product that is not valuable, or delivering a product that is not usable, that's something you cannot deliver because it's not feasible, or that it's something that's going to just cost you money and then you're not going to be able to make any revenue out of it. So I think if you start looking at it from that, you basically, first of all, it makes things in chewable bites, right? It's easier to look at it from these 4 angles. Mm-hmm. And then for each one of these areas, basically product discovery, all it means is de-risking. So it's just a very simple thing. You have an idea, you create assumption, and then you validate your assumption, and then you iterate on that. So it's a pure de-risking process, because as you say, the worst case scenario is spending a lot of time building something that nobody wants, or nobody can use, or nobody's going to pay for, right? It's like basically sinking money, and that's the worst thing. And I think I see that Alex posted a question here saying, what are the 3 questions you would ask a startup to determine if they have product market fit? And I would ask question around these 4 areas, basically, right? Because you need to be good in these 4 areas to have real product market fit. And of course, it's very hard to be good and to be really ticking the 4 boxes, but I think so. I would probably ask 4 questions and not 3. I would ask exactly this question, repeating myself, is like, are you really solving a real user problem? Are you solving it in a way that the user can actually like the experience and really do it? Are you solving it in a way that the company is going to make money out of it? So are people ready to pay for it? And finally, and the value is more than the cost, right? The revenue is more than the cost. And finally, is it feasible, right? They're considering the legal aspect of it, considering the technology behind it, considering all these different aspects that are external from the idea. So I think if you are capable of answering these 4 questions, and you can put that on a gradient, like nobody's 100% sure of everything, right? It's also very difficult to make sure you're 100% delighting your user, right? There's always an idea, but I think these are 4 questions you can ask yourself, and I think that answer a big part of that question.
I agree with you on delighting the user. You probably, when you deliver something, they're happy, they use it, and then they probably start wanting more. It's human nature. So you have to keep iterating and rediscovering your users so that you can keep delivering what you can't get comfortable in product delivery. You can't say we hit the jackpot.
No, absolutely. I think that's why you will hear everything about continuous discovery and I mean, we know all about continuous delivery, but continuous discovery is exactly the same thing, and it's an iterative process, because I think the worst case scenario is doing your discovery once and then moving into delivery and just thinking that everything is over. I'm a big advocate also of having this dual track running. So basically you have continuous discovery and continuous delivery happening in parallel with the same team, ideally. And that's something pretty new, not so easy to implement, but that works fairly well. So basically you run these 2 tracks in parallel so that you avoid stopping discovery at any point in time. And discovery doesn't have to be only the big foundings, right? You continue explore, experiment all the time, whether whether your product is young or your product is 10 years old. I mean, continuing evolving your product needs to happen through discovery. But at the end of the day, discovery means talking to your user and understanding what they want, and talking to the stakeholders, right?
Yeah, and I'm curious to hear more on having two tracks of product discovery and product execution. Is it that you have different deliverables at different stages, or how does that actually marry into the whole process without getting the team in disarray, like still maintain the team momentum?
Yeah, so first of all, it's definitely a change of mind, right? If you look at it, if a team only does product delivery, at the end of the day, they are in a command and control. They get orders from somewhere, and they just go and deliver, right? And that's a terrible thing, because basically they're risking nothing. You're just saying, I didn't talk to any user myself. I just took the order, and then all I'm doing is prioritizing and making sure I'm delivering something. So it's making a big bet. It can work, right? I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm just saying it's very dangerous, because it's the equivalent of basically making up an idea based on some assumption that were made and maybe always made, then going down into the tunnel, like building with like closing your ear, closing your eyes, just developing something, and then coming with a big bang and hope it's going to work. And every single company has done that at some point, right? It's like it's part of the learning. And I think the beauty of continuous discovery and this dual track idea is that it basically forced the team, and you have to kind of enforce it at the beginning if it's new for the team. So you need to make sure that you book in the calendar time every week for the team as a whole to do market research, to talk to user, to basically do workshop ideation and think about discovery, and integrate that into their weekly routine, so that they so that it's something that is ingrained and it become part of the rituals of all teams. And I think here what is also very important is to make sure that every single function in your cross-functional team is part of discovery. So what you want to avoid is that you want to avoid this idea of discovery is done by the product designer, product manager, and then the engineering are just building the stuff. It's extremely important to bring engineering into the discovery phase, because it will save you, first of all, the best engineer as the one who know why they are building the solution for, because they will always have that in their mind, and listening it firsthand is super important. And the second thing is everybody in the team should be on the same page and should be able to ideate. Of course, everybody comes from a different angle, but I think it's extremely important that it becomes part of the routine, that they work together, listen together, what the user has to say, come together with the ideation, the assumption that they're going to validate, and be exposed to all the prototype and the test across the whole team. So it becomes, and that's what I've been going through for the main company I work with, is change management. Also, you need to transform the way people are working.
Interesting. It's interesting to hear that even engineers should be involved in product discovery, because I can imagine most people are at stages where there's a part of the team that does the discovery, and then there's after that, then engineering takes over. So I'm curious to know how do you get buy-in even from top management, because that slows down delivery. But I can see the value in that if engineers from product design, QA engineers, developers are all involved, then they understand the value more, and it's easier for them to identify opportunities and solutions that are more likely to delight the customer. But then there's also the business on the other hand, who are waiting for delivery.
Yeah, and I think the key word here is trust, right? You need to, I mean, this only works if you give autonomy to the team, right? It comes also with way of working. If if you still operate in a command and control where basically all the ideas are coming top down and you say, that's what you're going to do, and that's when I need it, like, it's a different way of working. And if the company is operating that way and the top management wants to continue operating that way, it's almost a lost battle, right? If you don't have buy-in from the top management that there is a better way of developing product, it's going to be very, very hard to change everything.
And have you been in such a situation? Any insights on that?
Yeah, I don't know. I've been in certain situations like that, and I think it would be foolish to think that the perfect solution exists where basically all the team are fully autonomous and they work and it's perfect, and at no point in time there is anything dropped on someone's desk. That doesn't exist. Like, right, we don't live in La La Land, like the perfect world that you see described in books where the teams are fully autonomous, they can do everything, and at the end everybody's happy. Like, that doesn't exist, right? Like, the reality of life is that there are business critical things that happen, projects that need to take priority. Full autonomy of team doesn't exist. There's always dependency on other part of the organization. So that's more like what I'm describing is more shooting for a perfect solution, and we know it's not there, but we try to improve and get there. So it's about iterating and improving the way you are working. And I think it's the most relevant way of implementing this type of working is very iterative. Like, you don't come with a bang and say, like, if you have 10 product creation teams, say, okay, the 10 product creation team as of tomorrow, you're going to start working dual track. You do that, you're fully autonomous, and that works. You start with one team, you operate with that team, you adapt your system to how the company works and the culture in the company, and then you learn, and then you start expanding that. And in an ideal scenario, you move from a push where you as the leader want to push that way everywhere to a pull where other team who've seen the new way of working for the team are like, yeah, I want to operate like that. Seems to work pretty well. So it's a change management, unless of course you are starting a company from scratch and you implement that right from the beginning. But that, I didn't see that so far in my career, to be honest. I've always been transformation.
Yeah, I agree. It's not a perfect world, but we all aim to make it better. So we should iterate towards making product discovery in our respective organizations better, not go in big bang with our.
No, exactly. And I think one trick that I've used in one of the company I was working for is that the CEO was a little bit reluctant to change anything, right? It was kind of an old school company, and it was very much decision from the top and going, and but at the same time decisions were made very far away from reality and the user. So I just did a little trick, which was basically, I took the CEO and I asked him to register on the platform and go through the user experience himself. And I recorded it, right? So I had people sitting in the room while he was doing that, and I recorded it. And for the first time in more than 10 years that he was leading the company, he recognized how painful the user experience was. And that was something he never did himself, right? So just put himself in the shoes of the users and make sure that there are people who can see it, make sure that it's recorded, and just look at his, don't talk, let him do the user experience like that, and then play the record and look at his face and what he said. And that was a big turn point where basically then there was recognized across the whole company, starting from the CEO, that there was quite an effort that was needed to be closer to the user, because at the end of the day, that's what we all should be doing, not operate in a vacuum, but get closer to the user. So that's a funny thing. If ever you're in that position and you have the opportunity of taking, whether it's the CEO or the whole exec team or whatever, or your boss or whatever, your manager, just go through the user journey. I mean, as product manager, we should all do that for our own product, but I think bringing the other on the journey it's big eye opener. So easy to do and pretty powerful.
Yeah. That's a good one, but I'm not sure all of us will have access to the CEO every day. But,
No, but you don't have to,
of course,
right?
you influence who you can. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. You start with whoever you can, and at the end of the day, as product people, we are the ambassadors for the product and for the user experience. So having as many people in front of it as possible is part of our job.
Yeah. I'm seeing a question here from, is it Alex?
Yes.
Could you give an example where you or the team validated that it's a real problem? What data sources did you use? What were the critical assumptions? What was the most counterintuitive learning? It's an interesting one. Yep.
Okay, so I can give a ton of examples, but I'm gonna use one. I'm gonna continue in the music industry. It's more fun. But same thing. Basically. Yeah, we were trying to go to the music production space, and we were trying to go to a younger crowd of music producers, and coming from a world of professional music producer. So we were basically going from a pretty like age for in their 40s, professional, making a lot of music, making a lot of money with their music, to the 15 to 20-year-old hip hop producer in LA or somewhere else, especially in the US. And we were looking at, could they use our product to produce music? And here we wanted to first understand why they were not using our products, and we made some assumption around that. And the assumption was very simple. There were two of them. The first of all, price, costs, because of their age and their what they could afford or not, knowing that some music production software are pretty expensive. So the first one was validate that we're not at the right price range for them. And the second one was just easy access of that software within their working environment. So I don't want to go too deep into music production, but basically to produce music, you use what is called a DAW. So just think about a workstation to create music, mix and arrange your music. And you need to put some sound and software into it to play with it. And doing that integration was extremely complicated into the software that most of them are using, which, by the way, is they're using most of the time cracked software that they don't pay for. But independently from that, so we just validated that, and it was very easy. We just gave them the software and see if they were using it. And I was just not using it because it was painful to just integrate that into their working environment, and they didn't want to change working environment. So we basically interviewed about 85 music producer over a week with different with people in my team. Spend time with them in the studio, give them the gear before, and make sure they see if they would use it or not. And the data source we use is just user interviews, looking at that. As I say, 80 people, which was an okay sample size. The critical assumption, I went through it. We thought it was a problem of integration of our sound software into their working environment. And the most counterintuitive learning, that's interesting. I'm trying to think if I had one on this one. But I'm stretched. I'm looking for it a little bit. Counterintuitive learning on this one, no, because I think we knew pretty well where we were going. I was pretty straightforward. So I'm trying to think of another example of a counterintuitive learning, and nothing comes to my mind. I need to think about it. Yeah, I need to give it a little bit more thoughts, but I will. I'll get back to you, Alex.
No worries. It was a great answer. Thanks for sharing that.
Sure, thanks.
Then the example you just gave triggered a thought. You had to identify like 80 music producers, and you did your interviews. And I heard you mention that you took equipment to them, and it's like, so part of it was probably observation. But then how now in the current era that we are living in, are we able to still do our product discovery without really exposing ourselves, because countries are on lockdown? We still need to delight our customers. So
maybe so I started at Clark, the company I work with now in the InsurTech, in September. So basically I've been in lockdown since the day I started, right? And just to give you an example, the last 2 weeks, we run more than 60 user interviews. Because, I mean, in a normal time, we would all meet together and have panel and discussion and user coming there. But in normal, now it's extremely easy to do user interview over a conference call. There's also tools that allow you to put prototype in front of people without even being in the room. Like, it's really self-service, like something, I don't want to do promotion, but usertesting.com, for example, allow you to just put a prototype out there and let people basically try it out whenever they want, and you get all the results. So I think the pandemic and the fact that we are in lockdown and working from home might make things a little bit more difficult, especially for hardware. If you want to try things like real life prototype hardware, if you want to put that in the hand of people, of course, it's way more difficult. But if you are mostly working with digital products, I don't think it's very difficult these days. A lot of tools that allow you to reach out to users, have conversation with users, and it's pretty adapted to the new norm of the world we're living in. So if you're not in the hardware world, I think it's feasible. And even in the hardware world, there's always a way of making it happen. Of course, it's different. You're not going to sit over the shoulder of someone and look at them do the thing, but you can virtually be with this person in a virtual room. So I think there's still a lot of ways to make it happen, and I would definitely encourage everybody to, I used to say, go out of the building and talk to people. Now it's basically go on Zoom and talk to people, which is way less fun, right? But that's what it is.
Yeah. And then I wouldn't say I'm dogmatic about frameworks, but I'm curious to know, is there any specific framework that you would recommend people use as they do their product discovery? There's what you mentioned when you started. Is it a real problem? Is it relevant? Is it viable? And is it feasible? Is that an example of a framework? Or
I think that's a very easy. I'm like you. I'm not religious about frameworks. I think there are many out there. They are useful. But if I had a few, I would say, I think, looking at these 4 dimensions is a very simple one. It's interesting and it's guiding. So it's a good framework to use. Of course, for ideation and working with the team, everything around, we use a lot of design thinking, and I think design sprints are very interesting for that. So this double diamond idea, and there's a lot of documentation about that. It's also, sometimes it's called also the Google sprint and all that. But at the end of the day, it's just coming together, working together on identifying the problem, and then the second diamond on identifying a solution, and then prototyping that. And you can shrink it. The original design sprint is a week. So in a week, you're supposed to start ideating, build a prototype, and put the prototype in front of 5 users and get the results. So you can do all that in a week. Today at Clark, we're experimenting in doing that in way less time. So we actually work on 2 hours workshop with the team every 2 days, to have this every week, to have this continuous discovery. But we are using the same rationale as the design sprint. So I think design thinking and design sprint provide a good framework. So if you're not aware of that, I mean, there's a lot of literature around that, and I think it's worth trying. There's also very good training around that. I think it's very useful to be trained on how to run this kind of workshops. It's super interesting. It's a great way to bring all the stakeholders together in the room and work together and create alignment. So really nice. And another one is the framework that is called RAT, which means the riskiest assumption test. So it's a little bit similar to MVP, but from an assumption. So MVP is a little bit like, and MVP is I'm cautious with that because I think it's been this minimum viable product is been used and reused and it's a pretty terrible thing. Actually, in most company, it's used very badly because most company work on an MVP and then it turns into the product. When an MVP is an experiment, it should be killed and then you build the right product. That's the right way of using it, I think. So riskiest assumption test is the same thing. So basically, you know, an MVP is supposed to be a prototype and a little bit elaborate prototype that allows you to test an assumption. RAT or RAT, which is riskiest assumption test, is just working through all your assumption, rating them, prioritizing them, and focusing on building a prototype that is focused only on the riskiest assumption. And then you continue, once you have de-risked that, you continue going like that. So just, doesn't need to be a word. It's just, I think what is important is use some prioritization framework to prioritize your different assumption. And an easy one for that is just the impact, right? If your assumption was wrong, what would be the impact? If it's right, what would be the impact? And you can start prioritizing based on that. So very simple example, you have the greatest idea in the world, it's going to work perfectly, but legally you cannot do it. That's super high in terms of assumptions. So test your assumption first and eliminate, and it helps you eliminate a lot of things. I think at the end of the day, what is very important is discovery is about learning, and learning that you cannot do something is a great learning, right? And that's a learning that doesn't exist in delivery. In delivery is like you deliver something and it's too late when you discover that you should not have done it. The beauty of discovery is that you didn't build a single line of code or a single thing and you already know that you cannot do it. And I think that's because of the 4 reasons that I listed before, or one of the 4. So I think that's the beauty of delivery, of discovery, sorry.
I asked a question about getting buy-in from management, but what about getting buy-in from the team that is going to change their mindset? Because they're used to doing things in a certain way, and then suddenly they're asked to do, maybe at the beginning they'll think it's more, because they think I was hired to be a QA engineer, I was hired to be an engineer. So any insights on that?
Yeah, I think it's linked to what I was saying before. Like, it's like, don't start to put that new framework on everybody. Just, I think the way we do it in most company I join is just you create a program where basically you say, we're going to try that new thing, right? And you build a little bit of documentation of that. You build a little bit of excitement. We say, yeah, we do well, but let's try that new thing. We have an idea. And then you ask the teams, a cross-functional team, if you're already organized like that, to just tell you, to just basically raise their interest and say like, oh yeah, I'm interested, I want to try it. And you try it for a sprint or 2 with them. The reason why you do that is because you want to start small, but you want to start with people who are motivated to try. Because as you say, any change is difficult. Nobody likes change. Like it's difficult, it's uncomfortable. And it's not, I mean, just imagine you were working in a very clear way where basically the product manager comes with an idea, the designer make it beautiful and say exactly how it's going to look, and then you hand it over to the engineer. You had your little box and you know what you have to do. Like all of a sudden we come and we say, no, we're going to do differently. You're going to be the one. I come with a problem. You are the one. We agree on the problem, and you are the one coming up together as a team with the best way of solving it. And I think it requires a lot of effort from the people. So you need to give them time, and you need to make sure that these people are motivated to try something new. And trust me, there's always a team who is willing to do it. And maybe in the team, you only have 2 or 3 people who are motivated, but they will bring the other on board. And I think here, that's also the role of the product manager to motivate and influence the team to try and be a good communicator and bring the engineers or the designer to really embrace the process and be part of the conversation. And And not everybody will jump on it, and it's fine. You don't need the whole team to jump on it. You just need a few people to start showing how it works. And most of the time, at least in my experience, most of the time it works fairly well. You need to do some adjustment, and then it works fairly well.
Yeah, what I'm hearing from you is that we should all try to have a learning culture, like be open to try new things, and as you try them, be open to resistance and learn from that and keep iterating even when you're implementing a new process. Then
yeah. No, totally. I think at the end of the day, you can also treat that as a product, right? You can also say, I'm this new way, I'm going to treat it as a product. Let me try with a sample, like a very small group of people that are your early adopters, and the one that are going to be more willing to go the extra mile to try that are going to give you a lot of feedback. So we spend a lot of time. When I implement that in new company, I spend a lot of time with the team. Maybe I'm going to actually be part of the team for 2 weeks and just observe and look at what they are doing. And then you take their feedback and slowly you adapt your process or your system or way of working to the culture of the company. And also this new system is going to evolve the culture of the company. So it's very interesting to see how organically the company is also shaping along that. And it's a continuous learning. And I think that's a big part of the culture that I believe we are responsible to create in companies, this culture of continuous learning and growth mindset, right? It's like I personally hate being put in a box. So you see, I've been jumping from one industry to another. I've been working for big companies, small thing, and because I'm not really interested to do twice what I've done already once. Like it's just like we only have one life. We'd rather try many things. So I think that's part of this mindset, and hopefully a lot of people feel the same.
Yeah. Talking about new things, how do you, there's a question from one of the audience, how do you facilitate product discovery for an unknown product? Is it the same process for existing products? How?
It's the same. There is no, I mean, you start from more unknown. If it's a brand new product, of course. So as you start with more unknown, you make smaller steps at the beginning. But it's the same process. Like you never stop discovery. You never stop evolving a product, whether it's at the beginning of its life or the end of its life. And until you shelve the product and retire it and get it out of the market, you should continuously evolve your product. There is very few products out there that have been the same for a very long time. It's just especially if your goal is to still grow your audience and attract more users. I think you need to continuously evolve your product. That's also, if you look at the culture we are surrounded with, there are very few things that remain the same for a very long time. Everything gets little changes here and there.
Yeah. There's always an evolution about to hit us. Yeah.
No, sure, but especially in the digital world, right? I mean, it's like we are evolving as a society. We are evolving. There's new trends coming, and we need to be always on top of things and be and being this continuous change is also I don't know, it's part of the philosophy of building product. I think you're never done. That's kind of the thing. You're never done building a product.
Yeah, until you retire it. You're not done.
Yeah, but then you move to the next generation.
You move to the next one. Yes. Good one.
I think it's a never-ending story.
Yeah. I'll open the floor to questions. There are guys who joined after I'd already indicated that you can post your questions on the chat. So we've not seen any new questions, but if there are questions, you can unmute your mic and ask your question.
Hi, Nicolas.
Hey.
Yeah, sorry, I came in a bit late, so I would have actually posted my question right there. But I have a quick question. I do design research, and like currently, because of the pandemic, we've resulted in different ways of speaking to people. And previously, we used to go there, speak to people, empathize, and be able to like interact with the surroundings as well.
Did we lose him?
Looks like we did.
Oh, did you lose me?
Yeah, you're back.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, so I was just talking about, so when we're speaking to people on phone for interviews, so we kind of miss that. We don't feel like we're, we are empathizing enough. We don't see the surrounding or something like that. How has this pandemic affected maybe your process of product design or, maybe testing? I know you've talked about different tools of testing, but how, is that the same way as it was before?
No, it's not. I mean, it's not the same. Let's face it. It's not the. It's. I mean, we all know the difference between a Zoom call or a phone call, even which is even more kind of distancial. But I think it definitely changed things, and you have way more profound interaction face to face with users. They are way more engaged. I think it's quite easy to disengage in a Zoom call. So it takes more effort for the interviewer to keep the conversation going and to really get the people engaged. So I think what it means is it's more work basically, and it's more effort for us all and you, James, and others to just make sure the user you're interviewing are engaged. So it's a little bit difficult, and I think it's also a learning process, right? It was not necessarily for some product, it was not the core, like they were. It was not the core way of doing user research. So it's definitely difficult, but I think you create that empathy along. I mean, there's some tricks you can use. I mean, one of them is to, of course, relate to the people through the thing we're going together through, and the pandemic is a good way, right? I think we're all in the same boat here. So you need to break the ice through that, create the relationship, and I think, and we kind of getting used to it, right? Where we've been operating that way for a year now or something like that. So I think we developed new skills of being better at creating empathy through the screen. But it takes a load on people. Like I can see how it's very demanding, and so maybe you can do less, right? I think you don't go out of the building. You don't have this idea of interacting directly with people, which is a very human thing to do. Doing it through a screen takes a load on people, and so I guess what I see as a difference now is that it's more demanding for the people, and it takes a little bit more organization front end and on the front side, and people get burned a little bit faster. So you need to make sure that you don't push too much, and that people are comfortable doing that online. But it's definitely a challenge, and it's difficult for sure.
Got it. Thanks.
Any other person who has a question, feel free to unmute yourself and pose your question. You can even switch on your video if you're okay with that.
And maybe I have a question, actually, if it's possible to ask a question to the to the people listening to me for so long. It's like it's basically like, why? I'm curious, like, out of the people who are on the call, like, how many of you are actually actively doing product discovery, and how much of your time, I mean, in percentage or whatever, does it take as compared to working more on the delivery side? Just a little bit to get an idea. if anybody is willing to share.
Yeah. Hello.
Hey.
Hi, Kaya.
Hi. I am the co-founder of
We are losing you.
be able to. Can you hear me now?
Bits.
A bit.
Yeah.
All
No,
right.
that's better. Now it's better. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So as I was saying, I am Faye Oronja. I am a co-founder of Duka Plus, which is a platform that helps retailers or sellers be able to create an online shopping as well as manage stock inventory all in the same application. So we are currently doing discovery. That means we go out, the shop owners, the normal kiosks, and yeah, but we haven't started coding the whole platform, but we are from those assumptions that we had. We thought retailers had an issue or had a problem of being online, but turns out that that is not the main problem. It is one of the problems, but that is not the priority problem. The problem is they can't the inability to manage their stock and know how much profit they made in a given month. So yeah, as my friend, I keep on forgetting the name, Nicholas is asking. Yeah, so yes, we are. It's good to confirm those assumptions, and that is our process. Basically, you go out, you talk to them, and you listen. I think the key is just listen. Even if you won't solve all the problems, you will pick and point, one or two you had already started with, and make sure they are top of their, like it is top. Well, how do I put? In order of priority, it is one of the three key problems that they are facing. Because if it is not, they'll be very adamant to use your product once you launch it also. Thanks.
Yeah, totally makes total sense. I think indeed, if you manage to solve one of the top problem of the people, it's yeah, you definitely you're gonna strike there. So I think, as you say, being able to listen a lot, active listening, is extremely important. So I think being able to pick the little thing that are not said, and I think here also the very well trained user researcher or user interviewing people, or people who have a really good trade at that. They also pick the signals that are not necessarily spoken, so the body language and all these kind of things. So I think there's a lot of things that you learn by doing, but I think it's a good rule of thumb, of course. Like if you are really in the bullseye and then the problem you solve is on top of mind of your users, like of course, like it's the perfect scenario.
Thanks, Daya, for your input. We also have another question here. This should be our last question, hopefully, so we can keep time. Are there any book recommendations on this topic?
On discovery, I think no book in particular, but I think you should follow Teresa Torres.
Yeah.
Really good on product discovery. I think The Usual Suspects. So I'm a big fan of Marty Kagan, and I think he touched on in Inspired. So the previous book, not the new one, he talks a lot about product discovery and all the topic we touch upon. So definitely would recommend that. And the usual Melissa Perry and yeah, I think everybody who's in kind of modern product management will talk about product discovery and product delivery. But these are the authors that I think make a lot of sense. Petra Willer also are the good ones. But at the end of the day, it's at the core of every single modern product management thinking. And I think and also on design thinking, there are quite a lot of great books that have been written around that. So I think you will find a lot of literature around these topics, and the author that I gave are like kind of the natural go-to for this kind of thing, at least to start with.
Thanks for that. Teresa is actually putting together a book. I don't remember the title, but I'm sure you've heard about it as well. Yeah. So maybe by the time Alex starts picking books, a book will be published. Yeah.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, she's finishing a book.
Yeah.
But she's publishing a lot of very nice articles on LinkedIn as well, and so she's pretty active there. So you can pick a lot of interesting content there.
I agree. Then, to conclude the conversation, how would you, what would you want us to take home as a conclusion, in summary? Yeah.
Summary, I would say just like, very simple, listen to your users. I think that's the core thing of every product management, is like, understand your user, listen to them, and that's the starting point of everything. It doesn't solve everything. Like, you can still listen to your user and come to a solution that you cannot deliver technically, or it's not viable, you're not going to make money out of it, or you cannot even do it. But I think it's the starting point, because at the end of the day, if you don't create something that is relevant for your user, you better not do anything. Yeah. It's just going to be a liability. So I think be user-centric, listen to your user, understand them, and then you'll be successful.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Nicholas. And you also mentioned that you love to mentor. Maybe tell the audience how you go about that, and if they can reach out to you, if they need to do that, how? Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. It's probably the easiest way to reach out to me. I try to share some content there as well, and to help either on a short-term period or longer term. So I think LinkedIn is the best way to contact with me, to get in contact with me.
Okay. Thanks for that.
Perfect.
And thanks for the awesome session, Nicholas. Thanks, guys, for the questions that you present. And once I publish the recording on YouTube, I'll share it on our network. So if you want to just listen into the conversation once again, you can do that over and over. Yeah. So have a nice evening, guys. And thank you so much. Thank you too. Bye-bye.
Have a nice evening, everybody. Thank you for. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.